Welcome to Whiskey Throttle Media's 2026 Global Showdown finale. We are here finally after multiple days of testing with European brands, the Japanese brands, to find the very best 450cc motocross bike made on the planet today. In our Japanese shootout, it was a very close contest. Yamaha took the win with a tie for second between Honda and Kawasaki. We had to go to our subset of rankings to figure out who won that. Honda moved on. Sadly, Kawasaki did not. The Japanese shootout was set. Our European shootout results were wild. I think they surprised everybody. The Ducati, newcomer to the class, won the day overall, followed by a three-way tie for second between KTM, Gas, and Triumph. We had to go to our subset of scoring. The KTM moved on. It was a 1.5 point swing between second and fourth. Crazy. So it's time to determine who is making the best 450 motocross bike on the planet. Is it the Europeans? Is it the Japanese? Ducati, KTM, Yamaha, Honda. Who's it going to be? We've got an eclectic group of test riders. We're ready to do it here at Glen Helen. Huge thank you to our sponsors in this global showdown, starting with Bel-Ray Total Performance Lubricants. If you guys need anything, chain lube, engine oil, doesn't matter, go to those guys. They've got a long storied history of making excellent products. Big thank you to Bel-Ray. Also to Element. If you guys need to replace your electrolytes, and you do, check this stuff out. We've got a link on our Instagram page. You can get a free sample. This replaces all of the minerals and electrolytes you need without having any of the sugar and the crap that you don't want. So check those guys out. And lastly, I want to thank Langston Motorsports. Aside from the Ducati, you can buy all of these motorcycles down there. He's got a huge inventory of bikes, parts, gear, anything you need. Go check out Langston Motorsports. Say hi to GL. He'll be down there. And now let's get this shootout started. All right, we're here with Jason Frank, our vet novice test rider. You did the first Japanese test with us, and that was your first ever shootout you'd ever done.
First ever.
Day two here, we've got obviously the Japanese bikes, the European bikes that made it in. How was this different compared to that first day? Let's just start there.
Well, a couple things. I mean, we're at a proper motocross track today, and I didn't have a chance to ride in the European shootout leading up to this one. So there's two bikes today that I didn't get to ride before. But again, being on this track and being on the private track that we were at before, that's probably the only difference.
Yeah. And give us your stats one more time for the folks at home, just so they can relate.
49 years old, 6'1", 240.
You took some heat for the weight you gave.
Hey, listen, I didn't want to bring the scale, but I mean, if anybody wants to fact check it, you're more than welcome to come into my bathroom, okay? Vet C, Kurt Bike, CRF 450, 25.
Okay. Kind of the feedback I'm getting from everybody is it's very close. The margins between the bikes today was more narrow than the previous shootouts.
Absolutely. Comparatively from the Japanese shootout, this one, it is so close. It's like, it's coming down to inches. Every one of these motorcycles off the showroom floor is awesome. And I'll reiterate it again. Obviously, somebody at my weight, we have to spring a bike. But I think when you look at these bikes, I want to look at it from the perspective that if I'm going to spend the money, ride and race this bike all year, go to the track every weekend, not, play ride it, but can be competitive as a vet. I got to look and see which one I want to do that for a year and spend upwards of, $15,000 on some of them. Yeah.
I say this at the onset of every shootout I've ever been a part of. It's much more important that you find a dealer that will support you.
Oh yeah.
Than the particular color of bike you're on. Absolutely. Your lap times aren't going to change among the top 5 or 6 brands. If you've got a dealer that is supporting you with parts, service, maybe discounted gear, or just whatever. Yeah. That is all the difference in the world. So that's more important to me than the actual shootout results, but people want to hear it. So let's go. We've got Adam Persitza. And Adam, you are our vet intermediate rider. Give us your stats real quick, though. Run us down height, weight, class, and what bike you're currently riding.
Yeah, so I'm 6'1", about 200 pounds, vet intermediate, as you said, and then currently riding an RM 250.
I can see you guys going over your notes and paperwork and kind of scratching your head and trying to really figure out how you rank them, because as you just mentioned to me before we went on camera, it's like, it just comes down to little preferences.
Yeah.
Doesn't right here with Cody Moore. Cody is our off-road A rider, moto, fast intermediate, normally riding a Yamaha, weigh 140, 19 years old, just giving guys your stats. Difficult day. First thing you came when you came up down, you're like, man, that's close.
These top four are just all really dialed in bikes. Like it was super hard for me to go actually list them 1 through 4.
And you're the only guy, I think, who rode all 3 of our shootouts. So you were able to ride all the Japanese bikes, all the European bikes, and now all 4 bikes in the final. Is it interesting to you? Because the first day we had certain conditions. The next day at Fox, it was very soft and rutted and rough. And now here today, it is dry and hard and slick.
It's definitely crazy how different the bikes felt, like even just the European bikes like the Ducati and the KTM at Paula versus here. Like today, it was just so hard packed, windy and choppy. Like just the differences of how everything was, like all the characteristics, it really made me see the bikes in a totally new way. So it was nice to see.
Okay, guys, we're here with B. Ray. This is our resident pro racer test rider. And Brandon, you are moving very fast on these bikes, asking a lot of them. We tried to really get a good broad sense of test riders here. We've got from vet, beginner, or novice to yourself and everything in between. So kick us off, man. What finished 4th for you today?
4th is going to surprise a lot of people, but to me, with all the track was today, Ducati finished 4th. Definitely the fastest bike.
You think so?
I feel like I had the most power.
Okay.
And it, power in a different way. Like I feel like this bike pulled all the way through, like the hardest. The track was slippery and dry today, so some other bikes could have been getting wheel spin, or other bikes, where the Ducati was putting the power to the ground. It feels rigid. It feels like the chassis is very stiff on the bike, which I talked about to him with. I couldn't really throw the bike into the corners how I wanted to. Like in the last shootout, I'm more of an erratic rider than a smooth rider, and this bike kind of forces you to ride smooth, which I am working towards to be a smoother rider. I just felt like the bike pushed you to ride smoother. It cornered very well. Also, just sitting on the bike, it wasn't the most comfortable bike, so that's why I put it 4th.
Number 4, I have the Ducati. I know I put it in 1st at Paula. Like I was blown away with that bike there. But here at Glen Helen today, just in some of the sweepers, I felt like it was a little bit less forgiving if you made a mistake. But in the tighter corners, it still shines. So I think that's why I placed it so high at Paula, is just being a little tighter.
What was it about the Ducati you didn't like today that kind of put it 4th?
It was really just like me having to reach for gears on it. At Paula, I felt like my 2nd and 3rd would just really last like a long time. And here I felt like I would kind of have to short shift it a little bit for me to carry my speed and just keep it going and everything feel smooth. At Paula, I feel like I would be 2nd and 3rd and just be able to stay in those 2 gears, but here having to shift a lot more. Characteristics of the bike, I think, shine better at Paula than here.
And it was hard because I really love the way this bike looks. It's sexy as hell. It's a Ducati. I love the engine braking in map 1, but I also like the lights out map 2 too. But on this track today, it was like sometimes, I actually stalled that bike more than others because coming into the corner, I was actually coming in too fast and I ran out of talent. Suspension, just felt really stiff. It was one of the bikes that where I would definitely have to go get it sprung immediately before I could ride it and really feel comfortable.
And again, I'm seeing these common threads. All of the guys that like the Ducati are light. And when I spoke to the Ducati folks, they said this bike is sprung for about 135, 140 pounds. And I'm like, really? And they go, Italians are much lighter than Americans. This is something they're going to have to just learn.
Yeah.
But this is set up for that weight. So
Gotcha.
That makes total sense that our heavier riders are like, I'm not comfortable on it.
It is different.
The power delivery is different.
Power delivery is different. The way it feels doesn't feel bad. It's just, it's a wicked cool bike.
Yeah.
But it just didn't have enough to put it in the top.
4th for me today is Ducati. I really liked it. It was the first bike I went out on. There's just a few factors where I felt like it was a little weaker, but simple things that can be improved upon. Overall, for engine performance, it was actually my favorite. I loved it. It was a very linear, like smooth and just kept going. It was no crazy hit, but like third gear, you could just hold that thing for a lot longer. Some of the corners, especially going up hills, like you could be a gear taller and it will just grab and keep pulling, where most of their bikes, I had to start a lower gear and then shift up about halfway through the hill. So suspension handling, I put this one at a 3. I had a little issues in the beginning where like the front end just wouldn't want to dive into a corner, so I was struggling with that. We did drop the forks. They were flush initially. We went about 2 millimeters down. We did the sag at 106, and it definitely helped. That was the first bike I went on, so track was a lot better. I did take it out again one more time at the end to just kind of reaffirm. And then just after doing everything back to back, it just feels a little taller. Again, it's not bad. Me being a tall person, like it's fine, but I felt a little bit more at home on some of the other ones. So that's where it's like, it's not bad. Little adjustments can probably make it a bit more comfortable. Then as far as ergos and stuff, it was one of my favorite ones out there. Just good rider triangle. I could get all around the bike. My bigger negatives with it though are the shifter. I just had a really hard time getting it in a good position. Felt like it's too close to the case. Like if it was angled out a bit, and then in that like first setting, I probably would have had better contact overall. But
Rhino made the same comments. He thought it was out too far, but he goes, I just keep missing it.
Yeah.
I'm reaching for it and I'm missing it. So
yeah, so me, it's like, that's what I thought initially. And then I'm like, I just started turning my foot in more, and then I had better contact, but it's not how I want to ride it necessarily as I'm sliding my foot up. So really with all that, that's kind of why it sat fourth on me today, but I would still ride that bike any day of the week.
Sure. So, all right, take us into third for you.
Honda was third for me. Good, strong engine, a little too aggressive for how the track was breaking down today. Like on all of them, I ended up going to more of the mellow in the afternoon, doing the aggressive in the morning, and it just, the bike's just a little free flowing through all that chatter and stuff. So this one, it's like, even with that, it was just a bit much, like especially as I was getting tired and losing my hands. So suspension really balanced. Most of the bikes near the end of the day, I had to open up the rebound on the forks, just so, again, a little free flowing. They kept packing, kind of coming into these corners. But again, I really like the consistency on the like width of the chassis. Through like the rollers, that's probably where I was the most comfortable though. It just tracked really nicely, felt very nimble. Quartering, it was good, just a good planted feel, very predictable right when I jumped on it from another bike. Again, it's like just splitting hairs on why this one's third.
The Honda for me, it was my second to last bike I rode. So the track was pretty beat. I just felt really comfortable on it. The one bad thing about it I felt was that the bars are a little bit more narrow than all the other ones, but I got used to it, and I feel like the Honda really rewards just smooth riding. So I tried to, just ride like Jet a little bit and, hop around and do
don't
that.
we all? We all try to ride like Jet.
It just really rewarded that, and I liked it. I feel like I rode really well on it and was smooth. All the corners, I could trust it. The suspension we had pretty dialed in. We only went 2 clicks softer on the rebound. We didn't touch compression. Yeah, it was dialed. I mean, I felt comfortable on it. I just spun a bunch of laps on it. Probably spent the most time on it.
So no major complaints?
No major complaints. Like I said, it was so hard to list these. Like all of them, I really didn't have that big of complaints.
At the end of the day, when they're that close, you just have to go to comfort.
Yeah.
What am I most comfortable on?
Honda finished third for me. I've been riding Hondas a lot. I rode Hondas in 23, rode them all this year. So when I sat on this bike definitely felt the most comfortable. Obviously it should. I've been riding the bike the whole year. There's always been things I dislike about the bike. I know this bike very well. I get a lot of front end push, I feel like, on this bike, but just from the front back, I feel like this bike handles really well. With the track being dry and slick and dusty, and I feel like this bike handled, by far one of the best through the flat corners. I was able to kind of kick the rear end out and get on the gas and go. It just felt a little low on power. Other than that, the suspension felt soft for me.
Okay.
If I'm going to buy this bike and race it tomorrow, I don't have to do really anything to it. I can put a set of grips on it. I could probably get away with the front forks, actually, the springs. I'd have to put a rear shock on it. The motor is so good. The bike is super balanced. And today the track was dry. It was sketchy. Dude, that bike was stable. It did not do anything weird.
So what would you say gave that bike the win over second and third? Stability?
Yeah, 100%. It was super close. And to your point too, it could go either way. It was so close.
Yeah.
We were joking about quarter points.
Yeah.
It could come down to that.
Yeah.
If I was gifted one of these bikes, I wouldn't be unhappy with any of them. So it's awesome. They're all so good.
So for me, KTM came out on top. The first lap out, I love the ergos. Like, it felt very comfortable, predictable. Even though I can't remember, I think it's one of the heavier ones. It felt very nimble. Like, I put the engine a little underneath the Ducati, but it was the next best to me. Again, doing the different maps, like earlier, the more aggressive, loved it. As I was losing my hands and stuff, just getting tired throughout the day, that mellower just helped it kind of stay up on top of stuff. The one knock I'll say is I had more vibration than anything else. Again, we made some adjustments to the rebound and things, pretty much the same changes as making with the other ones later in the day, but it did just have some vibration that I didn't love, but it wasn't enough to like drop it down too much further. Cornering this thing, I felt the best. Like, it just dove into ruts, stayed planning on flat corners, very little input from me to go where I wanted to go. And then the ergos were great. And that, like I said, that really was the top performer for me today. I would race any one of these bikes tomorrow and feel very confident and have a great time on them.
Yeah.
So.
I spent a lot more time on it today than I did at Paula. Me putting a lot more time on it, and it shined here at Glen Helen for me. The motor especially. The mid to top end of it just felt a lot better for me with all the hills and everything. Some of the corners were pretty loamy, so when you go into it, you want that mid-range power to really carry you out of it. We worked a lot on suspension. It was the first bike I rode, so the track was probably at its best of all day, but it was still bumpy and it was more so chattery. So we went 3 clicks on rebound and we went 2 clicks on the compression.
Softer,
yeah. That really allowed it to shine. I felt like it was some of my best corners all day was on it. So how the motor was, I felt like I was kind of in between gears sometimes. Going through like the finish line tables, I feel like I'm in between gears, kind of either revved out or I was a little bit, carrying a gear high, and was a little bit off for me. And especially with the KTM, I think it rewards being a gear high. Just with the chassis and everything, it doesn't quite lock up, so it's a little bit different of a riding style for me. So I think if I adjusted to that, it would probably shine a little bit better.
I rode the Yamaha and then I rode the KTM. So right away in the morning, I compared those 2 bikes to each other because obviously they're back to back, and I felt like the KTM just had a more broader power to it, and I liked that it hit a little bit harder than than other bikes, and it handled very well. We did go a little bit in a high speed. Also, compression on the forks. We didn't change the air on the forks this time, and I just feel like my riding style suits this bike pretty well.
Well, you chose it on 2 completely different days. Yes. We had Fox, which was very deep, ruddy, bumpy, and the complete opposite out here today. Did you feel as good on both days?
Yeah, on this bike was definitely the one that I felt the same on between Paula and Glen Helen, because these 2 tracks are very different.
Do you feel like that bike is kind of geared towards pro level or high level racers?
I feel like it is. Yes, I feel like it is meant for your very serious racer. It wants you to ride it hard. It wants you to ride it fast. That's the power alone. Like, you can get in a hairy situation with it being too fast. The bike is like a rocket ship.
It is a rocket ship.
It is a rocket ship. I put the engine performance at 5. Suspension obviously could be a little bit better. I put it.
What about it could be better?
Just a little bit stiffer. On all the stock bikes, I kind of wish they were a little bit stiffer. Which, I can't complain too much because I'm 167. I am a very aggressive racer. Corners very well. I'm able to throw it in the corners and get low in the corners and get on the gas.
Absolute amazing motor. And it really has been. I had a chance to ride a 23 and a 24. It's a tractor. And that bike you can ride slow or you can ride fast. So it's just stable. It feels really sturdy. And it just is a really good bike. The ergos are fantastic. Love the bars.
What is it that put it forth for you?
It didn't do anything exceptional except for the motor. And before it was like, some of the bikes, it was like, okay, they did this exceptional and that not so good. There's a couple bikes in here that did a couple things, or 3 things exceptional. So that's where it came down to. It came down between the 4 and the 5. Yeah. So
I will say I've seen over the course of these 3 tests, the higher level, intermediate, and expert pro riders, they like the KTM better. It seems like it's more designed for a high level racer.
Yeah.
That's the thread I'm seeing.
Absolutely. And I think that's true. From a slower guy, you can also ride it slow. Like I could ride that bike at 60% and still have fun, and I can ride it at 80% and still have fun. If I ride it at 100%, I'm scaring myself. Engine is out of this world, is the Yamaha.
Okay.
It still is a bike that when you jump on it, like for me, you feel super confident. You just feel confident right out of the gate. Suspension is fantastic. As long as you keep the speed up with it, it's really, really good. But if you slow down and it wants to kind of wants to turn in on you. So that was kind of the way I felt for me, this killer bike.
Okay.
The motor, just a rev monster.
Was able to spend a little bit more time kind of dialing the setup, and that made a big difference. Really strong engine. I liked both maps. Again, the aggressive in the morning was awesome. It pulled really well. And then as it got rougher, doing that mellower, it loosened up the chassis a little bit. And then as I'm like getting on the gas and hitting the chatter, it just wasn't like whiskey throttling me. I was able to just kind of stay planted where I need to. Overall, I had the best suspension for me today once we spent more time dialing it in. We did a few different things. So we softened up the compression. It was actually a little stiff for me. And we had it at the stock clickers initially, and then we also opened up the rebound to speed it up in the front, and then we opened up the high speed on the rear because I was getting a little side to side movement on some of the faster straights in Talladega. But once we made all that, and that's all just super simple adjustments on the bike, like nothing you have to purchase, it was perfect. Like you can get way up on that tank, which I do really like about it, even though it's a little wider for what I prefer. Riding more time on it, I cared about it less throughout the day. So, and I'm not a fan of the shape of the seat. It's just a little too much of a dome. If it was just a hair flatter, I'd feel more comfortable. It is good to like get you in the right position, but me being taller and having more weight, I don't need that assistance of the bike to like shift my weight. So the other one's just having a little flatter seats. I just found that a little bit more at home for me.
There's something I didn't like about the Yamaha earlier in the day. I talked about it and then they actually switched it and I went back out on the bike. So this was the last bike I rode on the track and they switched mapping on it. I felt like this bike right off the bat, I felt like it kind of ran out of power. Felt like halfway through the corners, 3/4 away that I had to shift up to third. So if I'm going through a left-hand corner, that's kind of a issue. You know, they did say that they went up a tooth on the sprocket. So on a track like this, I would go down a tooth. 50 would definitely help. So that's what they did. They switched the map to a more linear. They put the smooth linear map in, and I really liked that a lot more. Bike handled very well. The suspension reacted well to the the fast bumps because obviously Glen Helen, the track was super fast today, super smooth. Every time I hit those little bumps, the bike just kind of floated right over it. We did go in on the clickers. I ended up going 4 in on the compression on the forks, 2 on the shock, and the bike felt very level. It'd feel better to me if I changed the bars. I didn't really like the bars. They felt kind of just narrow. I don't know. I just didn't like the bend.
Okay, so what won for you then? Yamaha, obviously.
Yeah, Yamaha.
Okay. Why did the Yamaha win?
Everything about it was dialed in here for me. I hopped on the bike and just immediately felt comfortable on it. Everything was flowing. I was riding a little bit more aggressive on it, and even though the track was slick, I still feel like I was riding well. It wasn't over my head, getting all out of control, but the bike still was planted underneath me, and I could crack the throttle and it would still track the whole way through. It wouldn't just break all over the place. Like you could roll it on when you need to, and then when you run a chopped throttle and get that really aggressive bottom end, it was there as well. So just the power all the way from the low end all the way to the top end, it was just there.
What was it about this bike that made you put it first over the Honda?
Just really the cornering was a little bit better on the entrances for me. I felt like it was a little bit more predictable. On the Yamaha, what I thought was going to happen is really what happened. Everything from the tight corners to the sweepers, I could just really lay it in and give her the power I want, and it would track all the way through.
Well, that's good results, good feedback. Thank you for your work. I know these are a lot of laps and a lot of riding. So
yeah.
All right, guys, that is a wrap here from Glen Helen and the very first annual Whiskey Throttle Media Global Showdown here for our 450 motocross bikes. What a crazy series. If you guys followed along in this whole thing, we had ties along this every single step of the way. Second and third in the Japanese shootout. We had second, third, and fourth tied in the European shootout. And today, second and third got tied again, and we had to go to our secondary point system to claim an overall winner, or second place and third place finishers. I'll tell you, we found some common threads in here, and I think if you guys watch the whole series through, you'll see that. Saying certain things about a bike, whether it's geared more towards a pro rider or it's geared for a softer, lighter rider. There's certain little things that you can follow that were the same at each event and with each rider, and you can kind of pick those apart and pull those out as absolute truths. Today here at Glen Helen, we had ridiculous conditions, crazy wind, it was hot. Track was dry, hard, slick, the complete opposite of what we had last weekend. This is the moment you waited for. Let's get to the results. Coming in fourth today, making the fourth best motorcycle, according to our test riders in 2026, is Ducati. So Ducati had 15 points. Tie between Honda and KTM at 9 points apiece. We go to the secondary point scoring. KTM was 68, Honda was 66. So Honda is third, KTM is second, and that makes Yamaha your champion for 2026. Not completely surprising considering they were the only manufacturer to make updates for 26, and they made quite a few. I have not ridden that bike yet, but every person that's ridden it has had positive things to say about it. And that isn't to say that it dominated, because the KTM had two different riders that picked it first today. One picked the Yamaha, one picked the Honda, and two picked the KTM. So you can see there's a lot of all over the board. It was just who was the most consistent. Yamaha's scores were 1, 2, 2, 2. KTM was 1, 1, 3, 4. Honda was 2, 1, 3, 3. So very, very close. None of these are bad motorcycles. Everybody kind of said the top 7 bikes are so close. With the right setup, they're great. You'd love them. It'd be great bikes for you. And I tell everybody, find the dealer that'll support you the best and buy the bikes, one of the bikes he's selling. That's the best bet for you. Big thank you to our sponsors, Bel-Ray, Total Performance Lubricants. Support those guys. They bring you cool stuff like this. Element, if you guys need to hydrate, and you do, replace your electrolytes without putting any sugar and garbage in your body. Check those guys out. And big thank you to Langston Motorsports, my homie, just the best dealership around. We appreciate those guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Toyota of Redlands for our truck that gets us around and gets us to these events. Appreciate you guys watching. 250 Shootout coming up next month. Stick around. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos, comment what you thought, and share it with your friends.